And that takes up fun.
Yes, yeah. Bit of company.
Bill.
Here's the boss.
Quiet.
Where are you going to?
So please stick around, there'll be further interviews during the course of the next wee while with some well-known names in Scottish motorsport, and you'll be able to hear from both Allan McNish and Sir Jackie Stewart once their tour of the Motor Museum is complete. There will be photo opportunities, and I'm sure you'll agree it'll certainly be a day to remember. But fantastic for such a high-profile figure in Scottish sport to have been here in 1969, to come back when the Trophy Room, as it was then, was revamped in 1993, to have supported in recent years, as recently as 2015, and to be with us again on the 29th of August 2019 for such an important occasion as this. Gentlemen, in just a few moments' time, we will be welcoming, just outside the front of the Motor Museum, Allan McNish and Sir Jackie Stewart. I think you were about 19 years old at the time, of this man's ability and his skills and what he was perhaps capable of.
I think actually it was even younger than that. Our garage was in a useful spot to stop to get petrol, and he was coming down. I had been at Risson at Thankful, so he was driving a TR2 or it must have been a TR2 at the time, that he was actually in that day. So I ran out from the house when I saw him driving in, because my mother's house and father's house was right next to the garage. So I went down there to see him and just was able to talk to him. And at that time he was just growing to be the driver he later turned out to be. But he was still already well recognised, doing something special. So that was the very beginning, and after that Graham Gold, who's here today, brought me down to Churnside and to Jimmy's. Stayed with Jimmy once or twice. Really, there was, and these days, there was a camaraderie about motor racing. The Formula One people were all close together, and we were all close friends. We travelled together, Jimmy and I and Helen, and holidayed together. So it was a much different thing than it is today. Everybody's now got their helicopters and their own jets, so you never see them spending any time together socially. Although in Monte Carlo, and Allan McNish is here today, another great Scot, Le Mans winner and so forth, there's a good community down there, but I don't think they had anything like the same depth of friendship that we had in our day. But of course it was considerably more dangerous then. Even before Jim died, it was a dangerous sport. So therefore we had a high respect for each other. There was no taking advantage the wrong way, and if you did it, you got a bollocking at the end of the practice session or the end of the race from the Grand Prix Drivers Association. It was a much closer group of people. So I think they were the halcyon days. I love Grand Prix racing. I still go to 8 or 10 Grand Prix races. I'm leaving this afternoon to go to Spa for the Grand Prix. But there isn't anything close to the friendship that, whether it was Graham Hill or Jimmy or Denny Holm or all the boys, we were really close to. So we're two Scotsmen, we didn't pay a bean for it. 2 bedrooms, a lovely apartment. Sally Stokes is here today, a great girlfriend of Jimmy's. And had Jim Clark ever married, I fear that she would have married Jim Clark, or he would have married her, I'm not quite sure. But I have to say, Sally, that you weren't the only one. Jim Clark was one of the cleverest guys I've ever met in my life. He had a lot of girlfriends, and his great skill was that every single one of them thought they were the only one. Now that was much more powerful than winning world championships.
He had that allure about him quite clearly. But also, you used him as a sounding board in your early days when you were thinking about two-seater to one-seat, single-seater cars, and you were almost looking for his advice or to try and get a reaction from him if you posed a question that would potentially determine which direction you would go in the sport.
Oh, absolutely. When Ken Tyrrell gave me the opportunity of testing a Formula 3 car in 1964, I didn't know what to do. My ideal would have been to drive a John Coombs Jaguar or an E-Type at that time. And he gave me this chance, and I didn't know whether to go to Goodwood or not, so I phoned Jimmy. And he said to me very clearly, if you want to be a racing driver, you've got to drive single-seaters. And if you're going to have to drive single-seaters, you've got to start at the bottom. And the best man in the world you could go to is Ken Tyrrell. That was Jimmy who was saying that. So I did go to Goodwood, I did get the drive, and that was 64. I went on to win the European and British Championship in Formula 3 that year. But it meant that I then got into Formula 1 the next year, and that was when we even got an opportunity to be really close because we were travelling around the world together. The Belgian Grand Prix was one of the early races. The South African Grand Prix was before that, of course, which was the first race of the season. And Jimmy won that, and I was way back. I was sixth, I think. But by the time we got to Spa, Spa-Francorchamps was a big challenge because there was no qualifying and it was strictly practice. But every lap was timed. And I was always asking Jimmy what to do and what not to do. And the race was in pouring rain, and Jimmy ran away. And I was the only person that sort of kept up with him, but 25 seconds behind him. And I finished the race in second place. We lapped the entire field, just the two of us. And I got to the podium. I said, oh, thank God you're all right. I was just in fear that you were going to be trying too hard. And that sort of friendship, got deeper and deeper. So that's why we were such good friends. So his smoothness was what was really his great talent. He never stressed the car. He was very smooth with it, very clean with it.
Well, thank you very much for your thoughts. We'll just keep Sir Jackie here for a moment. I wonder if I can call forward Allan McNish, who's one of our special guests here along with Sir Jackie this afternoon. Allan, come into the body of the kit, sir. Back in the very early days of Jim Clark and his experience as a driver, he also took part in Le Mans, so you have that connection as well. His time in Le Mans isn't spoken about quite so much, but clearly that was an early indication of how experienced the driver he was and how he could adapt to different cars and tracks and situations.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point, was the adaptability, because Le Mans is a 24-hour race. It's the equivalent of about 17 Formula 1 Grand Prix back-to-back, so nearly a season of racing a day. And you do have to adapt, and he was there, he was able to do it. But if you just go inside the museum, you've got, you talked about the Indy 500 victory in '65, you also can say the Formula 1 World Championship, then you've got a Lotus Cortina inside, and all of them are different animals and different characters. And I would refer a little bit back to what Jackie said earlier on about the field and the fact he was never pushing the car, he was just guiding the car through. And that's something that I heard about as a child round about the dining room table with my dad talking about Jim Clark and how he was able to do things with cars that others couldn't. And that adaptability and skill is something that I think really he had at a level that we don't often see, and certainly not today. That is for sure. Today's character and drivers are very, very different, and maybe not in that same skill set.
Growing up here in Berwickshire, of course, they had some great testing grounds in Winfield, and of course Winfield did very quickly rise to become one of the iconic circuits in the very early 50s, and Charter Hall as well. And Sir Jackie, you'll have memories of competing at Charter Hall, and one of the very early occasions you would meet Jim post that visit to your dad's garage would be down at Charter Hall.
Yes, but I never raced against him. He was driving an Aston Martin, and I by that time was driving either a Porsche, I don't know what it was, a 90, what do you call it? With a little touring car. Or I was driving an E-Type, or I was driving a Mark II Jaguar, or I was driving a Marcos. But that came a little later. When Jim was racing and I was there at the same time, Jim was already a big name. Everybody knew Jim Clark in these days. So Charter Hall was a very important place, and a lot of drivers came from Charter Hall to greater things. So it's a shame that we don't have a Charter Hall or a Winfield, which is not too far away from here either. And I used to go there as a spectator, as a wee boy, on my autograph book, which I've still got. So Charter Hall made a lot of Scottish racing drivers come to the very top.
Alan, those would be two circuits you would hear about around that dinner table, because I'd imagine a lot of the discussion was around that time where there was this growth in motorsport, and so many characters from almost an arc in Scotland. If you look from the Scottish borders up and through Lanarkshire, past Sir Jackie and Dumbarton down towards the southwest, it's quite incredible. Just that pocket of Scotland alone, the success that has come, and many of them of a particular vintage would enjoy success at Charter Hall. Do you sometimes wish that was open to you as a younger driver?
Well, I'd say the first thing was that I was very fortunate that I had the likes of Jim Clark and Sir Jackie Stewart to look up to, and also that we had in Scotland the stories around about the dining room table to inspire the young drivers and also the families to go along and to try to emulate and bring along some more success. And I think in reality, Jim Clark kick-started a lot of drivers' careers that have actually been here, seen the museum, but never necessarily met Jim, just because of the fact that he put the place on the map. He put Duns on the map and he put Scotland on the map. Sir Jackie then took it forward and guided, I would say, my generation of driver, being Dario Franchitti, David Coulthard, myself, and he guided us in the same sort of way. And that's something that Scotland's got, and you were talking about it with Jim, having a real sort of connection and a familiarity. I think we do look after our own. I think we do support our own, and I think the fact that so many people are here today says we have. We don't necessarily have the same circuit opportunities, but we do have a determination, and I would say a very family feel about ourselves, and that's been a big part of my career growth.
Duke, just before the unveiling, I'll pass on to Duke Niven just for a quick thanks with Sir Jackie just preparing to unveil the plaque here. Duke Niven, of course, the cousin of Jim Clark's.
Thank you, Stuart.